The bread had been sitting on the shelf for exactly 11 minutes when Marcus Wendell decided it would never make it to the discount bin because some things in life matter more than a job title, and dignity was one of them. The morning had started like any other at Fairview Plaza, a modest strip mall on the edge of a town that most people passed through without stopping. Marcus had worked as the janitor there for almost 6 years, mopping floors before sunrise, emptying trash bins that reeked of old coffee, and fixing the flickering light above the pharmacy entrance that never seemed to stay lit for more than a week. He was 52 years old, with calloused hands and a back that ached every evening, but he took pride in his work. He believed that keeping a place clean was a way of taking care of the people who walked through it, even if most of them never noticed him at all. That particular Tuesday, the autumn sun had barely climbed over the rooftops when Marcus noticed her. An elderly woman stood outside the small bakery at the corner of the plaza, her hands trembling as she counted coins from a worn coin purse. Her coat was thin for the chill in the air, patched at the elbows, and her shoes looked like they had walked more miles than they were built for. She counted the coins once, then twice, her lips moving silently as if pleading with the numbers to change. Marcus paused his broom against the wall and watched from a distance, not wanting to embarrass her. The bakery owner, a stern woman named Corinne who ran the shop with the precision of a clock, shook her head gently at the old woman. It was clear the coins were not enough. The old woman's shoulders sank and she turned to leave, clutching her purse to her chest like it was the last thing keeping her upright. Something inside Marcus refused to let her walk away empty-handed. He set his broom down, wiped his hands on his uniform, and walked into the bakery just as the old woman stepped out. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, warm and comforting, a stark contrast to the cold outside. Marcus approached the counter and asked Corinne for a loaf of the same bread the old woman had been eyeing, along with a small pack of butter. He paid with the crumpled bills from his own pocket, money he had set aside for his bus fare that week, and walked back outside. He found her sitting on a bench near the parking lot, staring at nothing in particular, the kind of stare that belongs to people who have grown used to disappointment. Marcus approached slowly, not wanting to startle her, and held out the paper bag with the bread inside. The old woman looked up at him, confusion flickering across her weathered face. Her name, she would later tell him, was Adeline Foster, and she had lived alone since her husband passed nearly a decade ago. She had no children nearby, no family who visited, only a small apartment 3 blocks away and a pension that barely covered her rent, let alone little comforts like fresh bread. Marcus simply told her that the bread was already paid for and that it would be a shame to let it go to waste. Adeline's eyes filled with tears as she took the bag with both hands, holding it as if it were something precious, something far more valuable than bread alone. She thanked him in a voice barely above a whisper, her words trembling with an emotion that seemed too large for such a small act of kindness. Before you continue watching, if you believe in kindness and second chances, hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this story with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Whispering Tales Stories so you never miss a story that touches the heart. From that day forward, Marcus began noticing Adeline more often. She would sit on the same bench most mornings watching the world go by, her presence as quiet and unassuming as a shadow. Marcus started bringing her small things during his breaks, sometimes a warm roll from the bakery, other times just a few kind words about the weather or the birds that gathered near the fountain. Adeline, in turn, began to open up, sharing stories about her late husband, a carpenter named Walter who used to build birdhouses for the neighborhood children, and about the daughter she had lost touch with after a misunderstanding that neither of them ever found the courage to repair. Marcus listened to her stories with the same care he gave to his work, understanding that sometimes people simply need someone to listen, to make them feel seen in a world that often looked right past them. He began to realize that Adeline's loneliness was not just about missing bread or money, but about missing connection, about missing the simple acknowledgement that she still mattered to someone. Weeks passed, and their small routine grew into something resembling friendship. Marcus would finish his early shift, and instead of rushing home, he would spend a few extra minutes at the bench, sharing a coffee from the vending machine, or simply sitting in comfortable silence with Adeline. The other shop owners in the plaza began to notice too. Corinne, the bakery owner who once seemed so stern, started setting aside day-old pastries for Adeline without ever mentioning it, quietly leaving them near the counter for Marcus to collect. But not everything remained peaceful. One afternoon, the plaza manager, a sharp-tongued man named Gerald Whitfield, caught Marcus speaking with Adeline during work hours and accused him of neglecting his duties. Gerald warned him that loitering with strangers on the property could cost him his job, reminding Marcus that he was there to clean, not to socialize. Marcus tried to explain that Adeline was not causing any trouble, that she was simply an elderly woman who needed a moment of kindness, but Gerald's mind was made up, fueled by complaints from a handful of tenants, who found her presence on the bench unsightly for their so-called professional image. For the first time in years, Marcus felt the weight of an impossible choice pressing down on his chest. He needed this job to pay his own bills, to support his aging mother who lived with him. Yet he could not bring himself to abandon Adeline the way the rest of the world already had. He spent sleepless nights wrestling with his conscience, staring at the ceiling and wondering if kindness was truly worth the risk of losing everything he had worked so hard to build. The turning point came on a bright afternoon when Adeline did not show up at her usual spot on the bench. Marcus waited nearly an hour before worry got the better of him, and he decided to walk the 3 blocks to her apartment, something he had never done before. He knocked on her door repeatedly, his heart pounding louder with each passing second of silence, until a neighbor finally emerged and told him that Adeline had fallen the night before and was taken to the hospital. Marcus rushed to the hospital immediately after his shift, arriving just in time to see Adeline resting in a small room, her frail body connected to machines that beeped steadily beside her bed. She smiled weakly when she saw him, telling him that she never expected anyone to come looking for her, that in all her years of loneliness, she had forgotten what it felt like to matter to someone outside her own 4 walls. It was in that hospital room that Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives. He began visiting Adeline every single day after his shift, sometimes bringing small treats from the bakery, other times simply sitting beside her bed reading to her from old newspapers. Word of his kindness eventually reached the plaza owner, a compassionate businesswoman named Priscilla Hartman, who happened to overhear Corinne talking about Marcus's quiet devotion to a lonely widow. Moved by the story, Priscilla intervened on Marcus's behalf, ensuring that Gerald's threats never materialized and even arranging a small pension fund contribution for Adeline as a gesture of goodwill from the plaza community. When Adeline finally recovered and returned home, she found her small apartment transformed by kindness she never expected, filled with visits from neighbors who had once ignored her, and a newfound sense of belonging that seemed to breathe fresh life into her weary heart. She often said that the bread Marcus bought her that first morning had done more than fill her stomach. It had reminded her that even in a world that felt increasingly cold, warmth could still be found in the most unexpected places, offered by the most unexpected people. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that kindness still exists in this world. Before we say goodbye, a special request. Comment the words "kindness matters" if you believe small acts like this can change someone's entire world. Marcus never saw himself as a hero. He was simply a janitor who believed that everyone deserved to be seen, to be remembered, to be treated with dignity regardless of how much money sat in their pocket. And in a quiet corner of an ordinary strip mall, a simple loaf of bread became the beginning of a friendship that reminded an entire community what it truly meant to care for one another.